Welcome into the back room episode. I never keep track of it. John Lunceford, Sean Rockstar Henniger, Scott Forrester, Tyler Johns here with you. And so when we were thinking about, hey, what can we talk about in the back room? How can we make fun of Jim, Ryan, and Lance today? Couldn't really think of anything. They kind of do it to themselves now. So instead, Tyler has now. Have you moved in yet?
So I'm officially moved in, but I haven't actually moved my stuff in.
Rocky's helping him move in this weekend.
We need to talk about that. I got some issues.
Tyler, now employee number 11 officially here for Disrupt Media, has his first apartment out of college and is moving in at some point, we assume. But that kind of made us think, hey, what was our experience with our first place we ever lived? On our own. Obviously, you grew up with your parents and they take care of you for a while, but once you move on and get your own place, what was that like? So Tyler, we'll start with you now that you're moving into a place professionally for the first time. We'll start with college with you. The first time you ever moved to a place on your own.
So the first time I ever moved into a place on my own, I was at Auburn. My freshman year, I was in the dorms, so I had a roommate there. But then my second year, I moved to these studio apartments off campus, and maybe a 5-minute walk to the main part of campus over by Sanford Hall and everything.
Okay.
So not far. And then they were maybe $400 a month.
It's awesome.
And that was 2 or 3 years ago.
Back in the good old days.
You can kind of gauge quality. It's about 200 square feet, 250 square feet.
Yes.
Wow.
Were you by yourself or did you have a roommate?
I thought I lived in a small place.
Did you have a roommate or was it just you?
Oh God, no! I couldn't have a roommate in there.
I don't know. Y'all sleep together.
There were some people at that apartment complex that did have roommates. There was even one family that lived in one of
God,
those.
that's sad.
It was a family of 4.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's my turn in the thinking corner.
I bet fight for the bathroom, and those were fun. All right. So what road was it on?
It was on Gay Street.
Okay. As an Alabama fan, always kind of makes me giggle. All right, Scott, college and professional, whatever your first living arrangements were.
First living arrangements in college were at a little studio apartment. I want to say it was like 500 square feet, right off of
Mansion.
Yeah, right. Magnolia Studios there in Auburn. Walking distance to Jordan-Hare. I remember the parking lot was insane on game day weekends because a lot of people trying to park in there. Remember spiders. We had spiders everywhere because it backed up to the woods. So just spiders all over the place. Yeah.
Did y'all have to live in a dorm your freshman year? Does Auburn require that? I didn't know.
It wasn't required, but most people did. Because it ends up costing roughly about the same, I think.
Okay. Did you ever live in a dorm?
I didn't start at Auburn, so I was a sophomore by the time I got to Auburn. Yeah.
Did you stay in a dorm where you were before?
No, I lived at home.
Loser.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hold on, professionally. Once you moved on from the planes and...
Professionally, first place, so after I graduated, I took a job at a TV station in Mobile and lived in a small apartment, but bigger than my studio in Auburn, just off of, a quarter of a mile from the TV station that I was working at. Pretty lame little little nothing apartment.
So my first apartment, I was 18 or 19, and my parents were going to help me out because I had no money. My parents were going to help me out with half the rent, so I found a nicer, not a nice place, but a nicer place. And it was a 2-bedroom, so I used the bedroom for my music stuff. and I had a fireplace, which is what the first apartment I ever had is, to this day, the best shower pressure, the best water pressure I've ever had. I love taking a shower at that place, but it had a fireplace, and my sense of a fireplace would I'd go over to Winn-Dixie, get me a Duraflame, boom, that's my fire. I just light the Duraflame one, and let that bad boy burn for about an hour, and that would be my fire for the night. And I remember you had this, I was very lazy back then, and I had this, you had this little back porch. I was on the second story. On the back porch, you had a utility closet where you could keep whatever in there. And so what I decided to do, the dumpster was, my God, it was probably 300 yards from my apartment. So what I would do is I'd like get my garbage and stuff, and like, I'm just gonna put this in the utility closet because I don't wanna go all the way down to the dumpster. And repeat that about 500 times. And I remember when I moved out, there's just like hefty bags, just like tons of them in my little storage closet. But then I think I lasted a year there, and I went to, when my parents said, you're on your own now, you gotta pay for it. And I was just basically making music money and working at Carmike Theaters. I got a place that was $420 a month, and it was a studio apartment, and it had, I don't know what you call it, but the fart catcher in your bathroom. the little thing,
little fan?
Yeah, the little fan you turn on. So
Have the little concentric squares.
Yeah, so it was a little teeny tiny bathroom, and I remember sitting down thinking one day, and I look up and there's a little
fart catcher,
a little millipede coming out of the fart catcher. I was like, that's weird, so I kill it. And then the next day, there were 2 millipedes. And the next day, I was in the shower and I saw, which is right by the fart catcher, 12 millipedes. And then I think carcasses all over the thing. So my genius thing, I didn't want to open that thing, so I just got a roll of duct tape and just shut it. Just made it one big strip.
How does it catch your farts then?
Yeah, I never turned it off. Oh, it was one of those ones where you turn it, like it's an engine. I was like, I'm not turning that thing on. So, and I lived alone. I didn't care about the fart catcher. And so about 2 weeks go by, and I'm like, I wonder, I haven't seen, there's only been a couple, because there used to be like 15 every morning when I get up for work. So I wanted to take this thing, and I took it down, and it was just a mass graveyard of just stuck millipedes that were dead. So I didn't last that long. And then for my first professional, when I got hired at Citadel at the time, which was Jocks, I had saved up enough music money to make rent in a small townhome. And that's the townhome I lived in, where the neighbor hung himself. Yeah.
Yo.
Wait, have you heard this story,
No,
John?
I have not heard this story.
I've heard this story kind of alluded to on the show.
Okay, so sorry, I just jumped the punchline. Yeah. So I just
There's a punchline.
I just got a Boston Terrier, and I made a big mistake. For some reason, I wanted a Boston Terrier, and he was so hyper. His name was Blue because he had blue eyes, and he was so hyper. And I had a next door neighbor who we shared a wall, and every now and then, he was probably in his 40s. He lived alone, and I remember seeing him at the mailboxes, and I tried to like, "What's up, man?" And he would not look at me. He would just walk off. And then he would like watch Star Wars or something with just this huge surround sound system, and it was so loud, and it would be like 8 p.m. and I would just kind of like hit the wall because it was just so obnoxiously loud. And one day, my dog was very bad about. They say when you put them in the crate, they won't shat where they sleep. That was untrue. I was waking up at 5 in the morning to do a current event show with Jay Willoughby and Richard Dixon, and I'd go to the crate and he'd be caked in shat. So I'd have to take him out and rinse him off. So one day I heard this large, okay, fast forward. A neighbor came to me who I never talked to, this Asian woman. She knocked on my door and she said, "Does your place smell really bad?" And I said, "My place always smells bad. I got a dog." And she's like, "Okay, well, have you seen the guy that lives next door to you?" And I said, "No, I never engage with him. He never talks to me." She's like, "Well, would you knock on his door? I'm really concerned about him." And I was like, "Okay, you can't do it." But okay, so she walked with me to his door. We knocked on the door, and you could hear a dog sniffing like under the. I was like, "Well, his dog's there. I can sit here and sniffing." And she goes, "But do you not smell it? It smells bad." I go, "Yeah, it kind of smells like an unclean garbage disposal." And thought nothing. She said, "Should I call the police?" And I was like, "Well, you do whatever you want to do." I'm like, I don't know the guy. Like, I don't even know his name. Forget about it. And the next morning, I hear these like loud vacuum cleaner type things. And I take my dog out to do his business, which is this little front yard. And a guy in a biohazard suit was on.
Oh, God.
And he unzips his helmet. Just right when I walk out the door, he unzips his helmet. And I was like, is everything okay? And the first thing he says to me is, he hung himself. He's been there for 12 days. Now, this could be a friend of mine.
Good Lord.
There's his bedside manner.
Wow.
So a friend of mine, all the places were the same. So we tried to figure out, like, how would he have done this? And so what it was you park in you had a carport that most people would turn into a spare room. And then off the carport was a stairwell to the den in the kitchen. Then there was another stairwell to the bedroom and the bathroom. So the second stairwell was a floating stairwell. So you could like do pull-ups if you will, because it was a floating stairwell above the first stairwell. So it was like a 12-foot drop. So we were thinking, oh man, so he just did the thing on the stairwell right here on the floating stairwell and did it, and with his dog there. So the next day they had like dumpsters and they were just throwing everything away. TVs, couches, everything was thrown in this dumpster, and they cleaned it. And then but a month or two later, this younger married couple moved in. I never met them. And this is going too far.
Did you brief them on?
My story. And our bathrooms were connected, like by a wall. And so I would play at Innisfree on Friday nights till like 3 in the morning. I was so tired, and I can't go to bed without taking a shower. So I remember I was taking a shower like at 3 in the morning. I had just turned the water off. I was stepping out, about to brush my teeth, and I hear the water running. I was like, oh, I guess, God, somebody next door is taking a shower or something. Like, that's crazy to be this late. And there was a bath. They were running a bath. And they were performing coitus in the bath. And thinking about a small apartment bathtub, and all I hear was just like flesh. And I go, wait, John, wait, stop, ow, stop, wait. And I just brushed my teeth. So that was my first professional place to live.
Wow.
I don't know that I can top that.
I absolutely.
Oh, that was the same complex. It was a news story. The same complex I lived in. The same complex where a guy was crashing with his friend for like months. This is way down from me, but he was crashing with his friend for months. Somehow, he came in late one night. His friend thought it was an intruder and shot him to death. That was a major news story.
So a lot of death and sex at Rocky's first place. Anyway, so
Top it.
Wow.
I don't know what to say.
Right. So where do we go from here?
Yeah, so my first place in college, the first apartment I ever lived in was at Auburn. It was on Glen. Like you go, like you're coming from 280, turn on College, and then turn on right on Glen. It was down like from my parents' house in Homewood to turn into my apartment complex at Auburn. You had to make 5 right turns. And that was it.
Sounds about right.
Turn on to Oxmoor Road, turn on to 280, turn on to College, turn on to Glen, turn into the.
It's a whole lot of
Turn
280.
into and obviously 280 is the vast majority of that. But I lived there with my best friend from high school, and I was only there for a semester. Then first apartment I lived in with somebody I didn't know was at Rutgers. I lived in an apartment for the semester I was there with 3 other guys, and it was awful. I hardly ever saw them, but that was that. And then my first that I was actually on my own was my final couple of years at Alabama. That I was on my own. I had an apartment that was right by the stadium. I almost wish I would have kept it because it was $500 a month. It was a 1-bedroom apartment. Wasn't super big, but it was perfect for like game day. And so
Rent probably has gone up a little bit since
well,
then.
probably has.
Right.
But so like I would come home on Friday night and go to the Homewood game or something like that, pick my parents up, come back so we could park at my apartment because they wanted to come to the game too. So we'd park at my apartment, have like the perfect parking place, go to the game, come back, and then I usually carry them home, go to church Sunday or something, and then come back. But I had a chance. There's like a chance towards the end right before I graduated. So my last full semester was when the tornado hit in Tuscaloosa. And so I ended up having to do a little bit of summer school after that to end up graduating. And it came time to, hey, do you want to re-sign a lease? I could have signed like a fairly long-term lease locked in at that $500. Now, that only would have lasted so long. But it would have been like $6,000 a year. And I told my dad, I was like, it's worth it just to have the parking space for football games because you're going to pay so much for that. Plus, you have an apartment to come stay at. We can go to basketball games. Like, you can do all kind of stuff. Like, people pay a ton for like football stuff. And the biggest regret is that we didn't keep that apartment because it's like, nah, it's okay. We'll, and then you end up spending a ton of money on everything. So biggest regret is I didn't keep that apartment after I graduated. But let's see, the first place I lived professionally is a brand new apartment complex over on 280. So I was working at Cox Media Group at the time, which is Summit Media now, which is like WZZK, The Eagle, Kiss Jam, stations like that. So they started a sports station over there, and I applied for a promotional job. And they're like, hey, we're starting a sports station. We see you intern at Jocks. I'd intern for the Roundtable. And so they hired me. So I was like, okay, this is my first big job out of college. I was part-time at first, but I was like, I'm going to find me an apartment. So I got me a full-time, probably 6 months in, and I got an apartment over there, but I thought I'm going to have like the coolest apartment ever, my first apartment. And I paid way too much for my apartment, and it took every penny I had just to pay rent there. I don't recommend doing that. So I don't recommend doing that.
Tyler, take notes.
Yeah, take that.
All right,
Don't spend every butt penny you have.
I spent more than I needed to just for the sake of like, I got a brand new apartment. I was the first person to ever live in this apartment. And they were built like in November, and I moved in like April into this apartment. They're still there. They're up on 280. It's back behind where like Kobe used to be. It's like a bank now over there, but
Petrocelli's.
Not that far down, but like where Ralph and Kaku's used to be.
Okay.
And what's it called now?
That's Papa Do's.
Papado. Yeah. Like if you kind of go up that circle, there's apartments on the back side and the front side, and there's the one facing 280, kind of the front side. But
Yeah, they've got new construction over there now.
that doesn't surprise me. They're cramming them in there over there.
We've got an employee living over there, actually.
Oh, well, whoever's living over there, I don't know who it is.
I think
know
it's
who it is.
Brown.
I know who it is. Yeah, it's Jim. But yeah, so it was nice. Look, it's super nice. But I was like, I had just got my first job. It was way too much money. So then I moved over to Valleydale and got a much older apartment, much smaller apartment, but it was a much cooler apartment. It was like, you know, when they say something's old and it's like, oh, this has like
Character.
like it really did. Like it, and that's where I was when that big like snowmageddon or whatever you want to call it, snowpocalypse, whatever anybody calls it, that happened here. It was 2014.
Yeah, 2013.
Yeah, so I was living there and I was unemployed because I got pissed at my old job and left and didn't have a job lined up, so I was unemployed at the time. And so I was locked in there.
Don't do that either.
Yeah, don't do that either. So I was locked in there, but it was a cool place to stay. And then I kind of apartment hopped and then got my first house, and then we're where we are now. But nobody died that I know of in them. I didn't really ever hear people having sex in them.
You haven't lived.
That I know of. I had kind of boring apartment life, but I hopped around for a few different places, mostly because I was hopping around jobs around here, different radio stations. I worked at every radio group in town, and I worked for the newspaper and all that. So by the way, there was a drive-by in newspapers today, but I found out Scott worked in the newspaper industry as well, down south. And then I
Did
worked
you
for
spell university?
I could manage that one.
University?
University?
University, and
University.
Engagement, and there was one other one.
Yep.
Recognize. No G.
No G. Yeah, without the G.
recognize. Yeah, so we're newspaper brothers back there. The dearly departed
Opelika Auburn News for
newspaper industry.
3-4 months.
I worked at the Birmingham News /AL.com for a little bit when they still printed papers. But anyway, so then I moved over to Homewood and then got a house, and now
I never have, besides one girlfriend that was weird circumstances, I've never had a roommate. And the girlfriend was like 2 months. Like I've never had like a...
have two now, but...
Yeah, well, besides a wife, I've never had even a guy friend. I've never had like, hey, this is Mike, he's my roommate, because I never had that because I can't do a roommate, even if it's a best friend. I was
It's
like,
a crapshoot.
I can't do it.
They're
Because I can't stand looking at dishes in the sink. I can't like knowing that like somebody's judging me that I like, dude, you watch TV entirely too much. Well, it's just a bad season for me. So
I got lucky. I don't know about y'all in college, but like I lived in a dorm my freshman year at Alabama, but I got lucky because it was Riverside had just opened as one of the newer ones. I guess it's actually not one of the newer ones now because they built so many new ones, but every person had their own bedroom. So it was 4 people in there, and I could request one. So I was in there with a guy I played football with at Homewood. So we were like the two at the end, and the two other ones were just two random people. And one was really good friends with Eric Anders, who played at Alabama, and so they were always over at our place. And then one ended up joining a fraternity, leaving halfway through. We got another frat boy came in. I didn't like either one of them, which I've probably seen this now. But
You didn't know which one you're talking about.
Then Brian that lived with me. I really like Brian who lived with me, and then me and my friend Sam lived there. But we at least could go to our own rooms. But the problem was, my room was next to somebody who did like to make the bathtub squeak a lot, and so you could hear that. But
I had a roommate like that too.
yeah, outside of that,
a lot of fun.
At Birmingham Southern, I lived in a dorm for one semester, but I lucked out because it was one of those. It's just like one small room with two people in it and no barriers whatsoever. But I lucked out and got one by myself. But outside of that, it's always been people I knew, except for at Rutgers. I got to side with people I didn't know, but I could separate myself off in a bedroom there too because it was like a multi-bedroom apartment. But yeah, living with people, I don't do well with other people. Like, whenever I've gone like on church trips and had to be like in a hotel room with somebody else or like
That's awful.
camp.
I'd pay for my room.
It just feels so awkward.
Yeah, like camp when you're
Seeing
in camp
somebody's
with a bunch
sleep
of other
routine.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm a snorer, so that also kind of affects the relationship there you have with people. But yeah, anyway. So there's our first place. This Tyler now is in his first professional apartment, so congratulations. Hopefully nobody kills themselves next to you.
I'm glad you're not Jim, or else I'd be expecting a call later.
God, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Well, I didn't get a call. I just got to meet the guy face to face. It just broke the news. He's been there for 12 days.
That's my guy.
12. Nobody asked about it.
It's been 12 days.
Damn.
He was my best friend. Oh, my bad.
Well, my bad. He didn't look like he struggled.
I saw a picture of you on his mantle. All right, this is awkward. So this has been the Back Room, episode whatever. Thanks to MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Code next round, go get that 110% deposit bonus. It's about to run out, I think. So go get that wherever it is on one side or the other. Yeah, is that it?
Have a blessed weekend.
Yes.
I hope your basketball team wins.